Hello everyone, my name is Blake and this is Walk the Parks. Today we are going to go on a full hike of the Delicate Arch Viewpoint Trail. This is different from the regular Delicate Arch Trail, which goes directly to the arch. This is a little bit easier to kind of make things a bit more accessible or to explore the park more. Right now I'm just kind of showing like that was the end view I got zoomed in, and then we contrast that with this is the view you get if you actually do the Delicate Arch Trail. So we're just going to get right going here because my videos tend to be long. I do try to provide, basically the goal of this is to have almost like a guidebook of the trails, but you get to see the whole trails in themselves. Let me know feedback if you think I should do it at 2x speed or whatnot. So anyway, right into this. Basically, we're going right now to the lower Delicate Arch viewpoint. The round trip distance here is about 200 feet. If you were to look to the left, and we'll see it in a second, you can see a faraway view of Delicate Arch, which is nice. And it's a lot easier. I mean, the other trail is about 5 miles round trip, and you do have a decent amount of climbing and a little bit of exposure on that other hike. So if that's not something you want to deal with, 5 miles or a little bit of exposure and climbing up on, some slick rock, then maybe consider doing this. Basically, they say this lower Delicate Arch viewpoint is about 5 to 15 minutes round trip. I will read you the text that's on all of these signs that we're looking at here as we go through the video a little bit later on. But first, so as you can see way in the viewpoint, you can kind of see Delicate Arch there. So, and I know that's a stretch and you might be thinking where, but if you pause the video there, you can see it. But just something to keep in mind, like the contrast between if you actually go to Delicate Arch, which is quite amazing, though a lot more challenging, versus this. Personally, I went to both. I enjoy kind of exploring the full park. I mean, Arches is a beautiful place. It is quite large, but there's really not tons and tons of trails. Like, I think I did all of them on my trip when I went. I mean, I'm a little crazy, obviously, because not only do all of them, but I like to make videos about them too. But just keep in mind, it's kind of something else to check out, or, due to accessibility or whatnot, maybe check this out. So there's actually 2 viewpoints. Next we're going to go to the upper Delicate Arch viewpoint, and they're saying the round trip distance is half a mile. I kind of felt like it was a little bit more than that, but to be honest, I was a bit confused by this trail. I think like right here it starts out really well marked, and it's like really wide and flattened out. But then I was looking at my map and it kind of goes out farther, and I'll show you the point where it goes out to, and there is kind of some markings. But I think what they're going for is they're just anticipating most people will stay on this like super well trodden path, and then the more adventurous will kind of go off of it. Because as soon as you do go off of it, of course, it's like a little bit steeper, a little bit more scrambling, a little bit more challenging navigation, etc. But I think that's what they're going for. And I do want to say I really respect the Park Service and everything they do. I know, particularly in areas like this, it must be really hard to manage because, you want to keep it wildernessy, and have a cool outdoor wilderness experience. But there's a lot of people that visit Arches National Park at the same time. So because of that, there's this kind of balance between marking everything super well versus you don't want people to get in over their heads, and you want people to have this wonderful wilderness experience. So I think that's the reason for the confusion. And I think also, there's a metal post that we'll see in just a few minutes, and there's no arrow on it. I think the arrow got ripped off, so probably that's just on the maintenance backlog or whatever. So that made it a little bit confusing. But again, I almost think maybe they intentionally want it to be so that most people won't go to where I went just because it's more challenging. That's my guess anyway. You guys let me know if you think I'm right or wrong on that. All right, so what were those signs that we just looked at? Well, great question. First off, we'll look at the Delicate Arch Trail. This is the sign that is right at the beginning, like right when the video started, when I started hiking. It says, "This is a rewarding but challenging trail. The hike climbs over 500 feet and has almost no shade. It takes many people. Oh God, I'm really reading the Delicate Arch Trail, not the Delicate Arch Viewpoint Trail. So ignore that. So Delicate Arch Viewpoint Trail. Although you can't hike all the way to it from here, these trails do provide excellent views of the most famous arch in the park. Take the short, accessible trail for a quick peek of Delicate Arch. The longer, steeper trail to the upper viewpoint yields a different perspective, with slightly more sky visible through the arch. Delicate Arch rests on the other side of a deep canyon 1 mile away. A more difficult hike all the way up to Delicate Arch starts at Wolf Ranch, 1 mile back down the road. So, there you have it. Beautiful day here today. I will certainly caution people that the sun here can just be relentless. I know folks who aren't from around this area a lot of times might think to themselves, oh man, I would just love to, they love the sun and basking in the sun, but it's a little bit different than kind of lounging on the beach. The sun kind of really beats down on you and it can get super hot, and especially these rocks can just absorb heat and re-radiate back onto you. So just be really cautious, make sure to bring water with you and, keep those electrolytes going. Salty snacks. I know sometimes, you think like salty snacks, no, stay away. But that can be a real savior in hotter weather and all of these kind of desert landscapes, because your body can sweat out so much, but a lot of times it lacks humidity, so you don't even notice it's happening. So your body can lose a ton of salts without even realizing. So try to eat salty foods and just be careful out here. I really can't emphasize that enough, particularly if you're here in hot months. The best time to visit here for sure is in the spring and the fall. Winter, believe it or not, I know a lot of people think the desert also is like just this hot, insanely hot, barren land, but it can be really cold and you can definitely get snow and ice here too. So winter is not the most ideal. And then the summer, just that scorching heat. It can just be so hot and relentless. Like, as you can see, there's pretty much no shade at all on this trail and most of the trails in the park. So definitely be cautious of that. Also, this video, even though it is in real time of the round trip, I would note, and I'm not trying to brag at all, but I am a bit of a faster hiker than many people, and a lot of these videos I'm not really taking breaks, or if I do take breaks, I try to cut them out of the video. So because of that, definitely allow yourself more time, like depending what kind of hiker you are. Also, this landscape tends to be quite a bit different than many people are used to. So because of that, navigation can be a bit more of a learning process here. So you might, a lot of the times things are marked by cairns, and cairns are just piles of rock. Here we see a sign that says trail with an arrow pointed, which is nice. But these cairns, which are little piles of rocks, and it can be kind of tricky. Like, I know a lot of places people think, like, for example, on the Appalachian Trail on the East Coast, for example, there's a well-trodden trail the whole way, along with these white blazes that mark all the time. Whereas here, you might be following, like, some rocks. Like, even right here, right? It's like, where do I go? You can go to a viewpoint down to the left, but I don't think that's the trail. The trail actually turns hard right here at this post. So again, this is where you're leaving the super well-trodden area. I'm looking down at my map being like, is this where I go? So, but I think it is. There are cairns down here. And you can explore. I don't know what the exact policies are, so be sure to check the park website and with the Park Service itself. But if you're going to explore, I would just highly recommend, there's really 3 surfaces you want to try to stay on, and one big one you want to try to avoid. So the first surface would be this right here. You're walking directly on slick rock, right? So your impact is pretty low here. And it's fun to kind of explore around and explore slick rocks. I'd just be cautious that this terrain can be easy to get lost on. And again, there's not really markings or a set trail. The second place where it's cool to go would be a designated trail like we were just on. So, if you stay on a designated trail, that's cool. And then the other place would be sandy washes. So like a wash is a stream without water. So you can find an area like that and just walk on the bottom. And the thing you want to avoid that I'm talking about is what's called cryptobiotic soil, or crypto as it's lovingly called. So basically, crypto, if you look at it, it's kind of a textured type of dirt. It really just looks like dirt, but maybe, again, has a little bit of like texture to it, and maybe has some darker, like, black or kind of speckled. And you might just think, oh, it's just dirt, whatever. But it takes a really long time for it to grow, and footprints can destroy it very easily. So keep that in mind, avoid the crypto. So again, this trail is even right here, is so drastically different from what we're on before. I think I'm on the route I'm supposed to take. There are cairns up here. There's things kind of indicating, at least it's well trodden, so I'm not, trampling any of that that cryptobiotic soil or anything like that. But just be cautious. I will say though, I did really enjoy this hike, like because it was kind of adventurous down at the bottom. It's kind of cool because it provides like the really good for accessibility trail, and then you can kind of go up a little bit higher, and then or if you're more adventurous, you can go all the way out to the end of this like kind of canyon ledge where I'm about to be on, which I thought was really cool. So you can kind of have several different adventures. And just to note, you cannot make it to Delicate Arch itself from here. If you do want to go to Delicate Arch, it's about a mile down the road. At the end of this video, I did provide like a video that's basically, it starts in my truck, leaving the Delicate Arch trail, and then you take a left and you go about a mile down to the Delicate Arch Viewpoint Trail. So if you want to see just what that looks like and what the parking looks like, you can check that out. There are some pit toilets at the trailhead, which is nice, so keep that in mind as well. So here's a cairn right here, so nice. Little rock pile, we're on the right track. And as I said, it can be kind of confusing, like, am I on the right track? But I wanted to go all the way to the end. So here I am. And as you can see, very cool, right? You can see Delicate Arch in the background. Absolutely beautiful. But if you really want to get up close to it, you either need a really good zoom lens and set that up at this area, or I would just recommend hiking the full Delicate Arch Trail. But again, that's a lot more of a commitment. I mean, you're looking at 5 miles versus here, which is only, about a mile or so. Actually, is that true? It's about 3 miles round trip on the Delicate Arch Trail, but it is a pretty committed trail. I mean, it's more challenging than you think. 500 feet of elevation gain, etc. So keep that in mind. All right, I'm just kind of going all the way up to the edge here. Obviously, be careful on the edges. If you fall, it could be a long, long way. I just love this landscape. Have you guys visited here? Have you gone on this trail? So cool. I feel like I got lucky with a beautiful cloudy day. So again, even at the most close point here, sure, I can see Delicate Arch, but I'm not really that close to it. So if you really want to get to the arch, you have to go down the road and take that other trail. You can use this trailhead as overflow parking. Even though the parking lot for Delicate Arch is quite large, it also tends to be full, like quite a high percentage of the time. So, but keep in mind, if you do park here as overflow parking, you cannot get to the arch through this trail. You'll have to hike a mile down the road and then a mile back. So it really adds 2 miles round trip to the hike. So keep that in mind if you're going to do the Delicate Arch Trail and the parking lot is full at Delicate Arch. So a couple things about the park. This video was shot in 2024, and Arches National Park does have a timed entry system in place. But there are specific dates associated with that, and I'm not sure. I mean, I think it may be a trial program, but it might also be permanent. I'm not 100% sure, so be sure to look at the Arches National Park website and recreation.gov because you actually need to have a reservation to get into the park. And it's a specific date and a specific time, so keep that in mind. You do have to get that in advance, and Just keep that in mind. As far as lodging within the park, there is a campground, Devil's Garden Campground, but it's very challenging to get reservations. It was on the list. I saw a list somewhat recently of, the 10 busiest campgrounds in the National Park Service, and Devil's Garden Campground was on that list. So make sure to keep that in mind, as it might be challenging to find a spot there. Really cool campground though. I was able to get a spot myself there. Really enjoyed it. There are some trails that leave. You can do a loop directly from the campground, which is awesome. But just keep that in mind. All right, so now I'm going to go through and read the rest of the signs. So the first one we saw at the lower viewpoint was an enduring icon. Delicate Arch has become a powerful and lasting symbol. It is an emblem of Arches National Park and the city of Moab. You'll also find it serving as an icon for the state of Utah, the American West, and sometimes the entire National Park Service. The arch is unique, rugged, and somehow manages to accomplish what seems impossible. Around 1906, a photographer took the first known picture of Delicate Arch. Today, you can see the same arch on postcards, logos, souvenirs, the Utah license plate, and much more. How many times will you see the arch on this trip? What does it represent to you? And then there's a bunch of photos of Delicate Arch, and I think they're right. This has got to be one of the most iconic places in the entire Southwest. All right, so then there's a little model of the arch next to that sign, and basically it's encourages you to touch the arch, and it says in this scale model, 1 inch equals 6 feet. The real Delicate Arch is 60 times bigger than this one. It is 60 feet tall, so that's pretty cool. Next, we have one that says, Green Rock from a Greener Time. The park's rock layers represent climates and environments that change drastically over enormous stretches of time. Each layer reveals details of those ancient settings. The sediments of this green rock layer come from a humid era in Arch's Jurassic past, with braided rivers, floodplains, and a nearby volcano. Volcanic ash full of iron settled atop clay, silt, and other sediments here. Where it landed underwater, iron behaved differently than in other places. Instead of making the surrounding instead of making the surrounding rock red or orange with iron oxide, aka rust, this reduced iron tinted the rock greenish blue. So you can see it in some areas, like where this sign is in particular, which is quite more towards the beginning of this hike. So if you want to kind of go back in the video and look at that, you can. And sometimes people might think, like, what's the purpose of this video? And I hope that there's really 3 purposes that I see. Number one, people that want to kind of check this place out, right? Like maybe they're planning a trip or thinking of planning a trip. You want to kind of do some research. You're a person who wants to know, is this worth it? So maybe you'll kind of look through and see the views, or you might think, like, what does the parking lot look like based on your type of vehicle? Try to show that at least decently. And then I did shoot more driving videos, but then I looked up and there's some people that just have amazing driving videos, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, versus mine, which is like through a semi-bug covered windshield that you can see at the end of this video if you're interested. The second purpose for this is I think it'd be cool for people on treadmills to use this, or on gym equipment, because you can, a lot of times I feel like you can watch Netflix, or you can have the news on in the background in the gym or whatever. But I think it's cool to have something like this in the background. You can think that you really are somewhere, so you can kind of have a virtual reality experience. And then the third use of this video is that I'm hoping is kind of accessibility, right? So there's a number of people, for a huge number of reasons, that will never be able to make it to Arches National Park, or maybe, won't be able to go on these trails or whatnot. So I'm hoping that providing these videos will be able to give those people a little bit of a closer glimpse of what it's like. Obviously, no video can fully do it justice, but that is my intention here. So now we're just kind of hiking back to the car. And again, too, I don't know whether it's good. Like, I shot a few videos and I was like just doing one way, and then I was like, and then somebody said, like, oh, I want to know what it's like. I want to know what it's like on the way back. So I've pretty much provided most of my videos where I provide to and from. So some of the videos are really, really long. I don't babble the way through all of them, especially the longer videos. I'll just kind of do a similar spiel, kind of talk about the park, talk about the trail, etc., and then kind of leave the rest of the video to, if people are really interested, they could fast forward to the viewpoints, or watch the whole thing if they're on the gym, or one of those people who will maybe never make it here and want to see what the whole thing is like. I a lot of times too keep it in the background with mute, so I'll just mute myself out and just kind of have this on in the background, and I kind of have it be, it's almost like I don't want to say piece of art, but like a poster, but it moves. So I'll keep it on one of my monitors if I'm working or something like that. So anyway, how do you use my videos? Do you find them useful? Should I include both ways, or should I not? Any feedback is welcome. So some other things to talk about, just make sure to leave no trace. There are pit toilets at the beginning of the trail. Make sure to try your hardest to use those. Leave no trace. There's a lot of different principles of it, but primarily, leave only footprints, take only pictures. If you do bring stuff and want to have a picnic out here, make sure you're not leaving any garbage or anything. Take everything out with you. I love our national parks. I love so many of our trails. I think one awesome part of American culture is that most of the time there's no garbage on a lot of our public land and a lot of our trails. I mean, I'm sure there's exceptions. People are thinking of those, but for the most part, like on this trail, I didn't see a single piece of garbage. It's awesome. Let's keep it that way. It's up, like we want our kids, grandkids, 5,000 years down the road to be able to check out these sites. I don't think that's hard for most of us to get behind. So as far as Delicate Arch, this is, called Entrada sandstone. That's where the Delicate Arch was formed, and was once a vast desert with shifting sand dunes. Over time, these sands were compressed into rock. And I find it really cool that, and on the right there is where that green rock sign was. But I find it really cool that even the different sources describe different times, right? Because we were reading about that on that other sign about how it's like Jurassic period and there was tropical and rivers and stuff, and then the other one's a vast desert with shifting sand dunes. And I think the reality is it was both. And I think these areas also have been underwater at certain times, which is just, I don't know. This whole area just blows my mind. This is the general geologic area. The whole thing is called the Colorado Plateau. And even though it's called Colorado Plateau, it's really in, a little bit of super western Colorado, but a lot of southern Utah, down to the Grand Canyon, and then into New Mexico. So that kind of Four Corners area. All right, so we're done with the trail. And then this is in 4 times speed I'm pulling out of the Delicate Arch trailhead, and now we're going to the Delicate Arch Viewpoint trailhead. Kind of confusing names, but not really. So again, this is 4 times speed. I just want to show what it's like. You cross over some kind of floodplains, and then we'll see exactly what the parking lot looks like up here. And then we'll conclude the video. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope that you get a chance to come out here. If you're thinking about it, I would really encourage you to go. This whole area is incredible. It's absolutely beautiful. Can be quite a harsh environment, though, as I've mentioned. The sun can be rather relentless. This cloudy day doesn't really represent. I feel like the more common or typical day is just bright sunshine, not many clouds in the sky. But it can also be quite dramatic, right? So I wouldn't just encourage the weather's mild. Any time of year coming here, I would encourage you to bring clothes for, I don't know, anything from snow to 100 degrees. At least bring a big jacket just in case. All right, cool. So I just wanted to show you what the parking lot looks like here. The bathrooms are to the left. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful day.